It has finally happened. After an offseason filled with drama, shots thrown at each other between James Harden and Daryl Morey, Harden saying he'll never play for an organization Morey is a part of again, calling him a liar, to then Morey saying, yeah, we're not going to trade you and expect you to report to training camp, to then Harden not showing up for camp nor the preseason, then seemingly missing the first few games of the regular season. We then finally get the Woj bomb we've been waiting for. The Woj bomb after dark. You knew he was excited to get that in before Shams did while he was still sleeping. That it was official. James Harden has been traded to the LA Clippers, ending a months-long saga of what the Sixers were going to do about the James Harden situation before it got even worse. But as much as people want to talk about how this move takes the Clippers to the next level, how this puts them as one of the top teams in the Western Conference and a surefire title contender, this may not have been their best decision as their last-ditch attempt to finally get this team over the hump in winning their franchise its first title. But not only that, why this might not even have been the best move for James Harden himself. What do I mean by all this? Well, let's talk about it further in the implications that this trade has on the future of the Clippers, James Harden, and the 76ers as well, and where these teams go from here. Of course, as always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, say what you will about James Harden. He's a locker room cancer, a headache to deal with, no loyalty whatsoever, not a team player, or that he's an empty stats player that doesn't really translate to winning. While a lot of that is true, and me personally, I've never been a fan of his game, the fact of the matter is he's still a star in this league, despite showing some signs of decline in recent years. And for a player like Harden to join an already team that has two established stars in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, that team is going to be pretty damn good. But while everyone is talking about the Clippers and how much better they got, some people even saying that the Sixers got fleeced, what people are forgetting here is that this is actually a very risky move for the Clippers. First of all, James Harden is on an expiring contract. He's going to be a free agent next summer. Now, I'm sure they did this trade in mind with some assurances that he's going to re-sign with them long term, but this is James Harden we're talking about. There is no guarantee that he's going to be happy by the end of the season or stirring up some sort of drama about not getting the kind of contract that he thinks he deserves. The Clippers are essentially going to find themselves in the same situation the Sixers were to start this past offseason in botching negotiations by not giving James Harden the max contract extension that he wanted. And look, even if Harden does play very well for the Clippers, and the Clippers go on this insane run in the playoffs, say they even win the title, even then, I think most will agree that maxing out James Harden at his age does not make a lot of sense. So unless they're kind of preempting this with saying to Harden, hey, we want you to re-sign here, especially since we're trading a lot to get you, but you're not going to be able to get the max, especially when maxing out Harden puts the Clippers well over that second-tier luxury tax threshold, which limits their ability to use things like the full mid-level exception to round out the rest of their roster. But I think more importantly, does this trade actually make the Clippers that much better? Like, yes, the Clippers will be better, or at least you would think they'll be better with James Harden, but does that instantly make them the biggest threat to win the championship? Especially when you have teams like the Suns, the Nuggets, the Bucks, and Celtics, who all have star-studded casts. I mean, on paper, adding an elite scorer and playmaker like James Harden, you put him alongside Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, some of the best two-way players in the league, as well as Russell Westbrook and some of the depth pieces that the Clippers have. Yeah, the roster seems unstoppable, but will it actually work when they're on the court, and can it produce consistent winning? See, the challenge in putting together a super team in the NBA is that it sounds amazing in practice, but when you have a bunch of superstars coming together who are all used to getting their touches and shot attempts, and then they realize they need to sacrifice in order for the other guys to get their looks and touches, it can be a problem if certain players don't buy into that system. There are only so many mouths to feed, only so many shots to go around, and if you're used to being the one to always get fed, and you suddenly have to change that, and if you're not used to it or you don't accept it, that's going to be a problem. Now, I know people will say, well, what are you talking about? James Harden has literally played with some of the best superstars in the game more recently, being on the Nets with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and then of course Joel Embiid more recently. Like, the dude has been through this before. Joining Kawhi Leonard and Paul George should be nothing new. Yes, but look at what happened in both of those scenarios. Harden didn't even last 2 full seasons on each of those teams before he became upset and pushed his way out. And even before pushing his way out, it's not like Harden exactly fit well in each of those scenarios. The way he carried himself, especially in the playoffs with negative energy, poor attitude, body language, like he didn't really care to be there, that says it all that James Harden has a hard time accepting a lesser role on a team. Like, as much as he says he wants to win a championship, that all he cares about is winning, it certainly doesn't seem to be the case when your effort and body language says otherwise when asked to make sacrifices on the court. And so That's what I worry about for the Clippers. First of all, because they gave up more than they should have for a player whose trade value was at an all-time low, which I'll get to that. But more importantly, this is the Clippers' last chance to get this right. We've talked about this before, but this could very well be their shot, their last shot at a title run. Kawhi and Paul George are not getting any younger. Their health is always questionable. They both have player options at the end of the season and could become unrestricted free agents if they decline their options. If things don't work out with Harden, if they fall below expectations, if that big three doesn't fit well together or they become frustrated with each other, they could see a trifecta where all three of them hit free agency and look to go elsewhere, effectively triggering a rebuild for the Clippers. And if that happens, you're talking about a long rebuilding process because the Clippers now have little to no draft capital to work with for the future. Few young players to really look forward to outside of, say, maybe Trey Mann and Bones Highland. The Clippers are the oldest team in the league right now by average age. And they now have even further less to work with for the future after trading away even more picks to land a 34-year-old James Harden. And so yes, the Clippers in theory should be better with Harden, but is it enough to win them a title? Can they extract the best out of James to ensure he doesn't revert back to his old ways? Can they keep him engaged? Can they re-sign him? Otherwise, the Clippers are going to be in for a world of hurt when it comes to the future of this team. But leading into the future of the Clippers, the other thing that most people are overlooking is what this means for the future of the Sixers. Because the Sixers, despite moving on from Harden and getting a fair amount of draft capital for him in return, they're still looking to win now. And as currently constructed, even with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey so far having an outstanding year, they're not a championship level team. Too much competition at the top to say that the Sixers have a legitimate chance to win a title. But they didn't get all those picks for nothing. They're not getting those picks to use later on down the line to build with. No, they're interested in those picks to package in a deal to land another star level player. Essentially finding James Harden's replacement. A win now established star player to pair alongside Joel Embiid to put them in the running to win a championship. Now, who is that player? We'll have to wait and see. Zach LaVine, OG Anunoby have been a few names floated around, essentially players who are on teams that could look to go on a fire sale and be interested in draft picks in a rebuild. But whoever the Sixers pursue in a trade, now that they finally got Harden off their hands, what's been more impressive in all of this is the kind of haul they got for James Harden. Like I said this before, I've seen a lot of people say the Clippers won this trade hands down, but when you factor in that the Sixers had little to no leverage, they knew Harden wasn't going to be playing for them again. They knew they were dealing with an aging star on an expiring contract, and they knew that the perception around the league about Harden wasn't good in terms of his loyalty and selfishness and his history creating problems for a front office. Like the interest level in James Harden in a trade was at an all-time low. James Harden's trade value could not be any lower than what it was at any point in his career. And yet somehow, they managed to walk away with 2 first-round picks, one of which is unprotected, a pick swap, as well as 2 seconds. And a handful of vets to go with it, which I know was really more for salary filler purposes, but some of those guys are solid vets that can provide great rotational minutes and give the Sixers more depth. For James Harden to net that kind of return, after all the drama, teams wanting nothing to do with him, that is incredible, and as much as I don't like Daryl Morey and think he's overrated as a GM, I have to hand it to him for pulling that off when for a while it looked like the best the Sixers were going to be able to do was get 1 first-round pick with protections at best for James Harden. For the Sixers, they now have positioned themselves well to get another star-level player to pair with Embiid. They still have cap flexibility for the future with Tobias Harris's contract expiring, and they have been fortunate enough to have a player like Tyrese Maxey having a breakout year so far. All factors that enable them to keep Joel Embiid happy and not find themselves in a position where he soon demands a trade. Because that's where a lot of people thought this was going. Harden leaves, Embiid gets fed up and he demands a trade himself, and the Sixers have to start the process all over again. That still could happen, but they likely afforded themselves some more time to get this right while they still have Embiid under contract for the next 4 years. I would love to know what you guys think, though, of the James Harden trade now that we've had a few days to marinate it on it a little. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.